good morning, and welcome to Crypto Divas. But as you can see, we have a guest with us today. So it's not just Liina, Lass Bilson, and myself. We've got Simon Cocking. And Simon Cocking, people know I'm reading all the stuff here, top 8 Irish tech journalists to follow, top 7 ICO advisors, top ranked member of People in Blockchain. You get the picture. You're on top of a lot of lists, Simon. Welcome to Crypto Divas. So what we're going to
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. There's a couple of headlines I'm going to run through, and then we're going to just discuss them. It's a bit of a different format to our normal one. We're going to be talking today about the Russian government buying 10 billion worth of Bitcoin, or are they? The Ethereum Constantinople Fork, that didn't happen. When might it happen? More hacks. Cryptopia in New Zealand, significant losses were announced during the week. Then the Blockchain Regulation Certainty Act is going through US Congress, mostly on tax, I think, and of course, the price of Bitcoin. So anyway, go back to our first point. It was all over the news last week that the Russian government was buying 10 billion worth of Bitcoin to sort of shore itself up against Trump. Simon, were you following that news?
Well, look, I mean, I think the thing with Russia in general over the last few years is I've always felt they're keeping their options open both ways. So, I mean, you know, we've run stories about the Russians clamping down on crypto, but at the same time, there'll be another story about that they're looking to launch their own version of a cryptocurrency. So I think if you talk about wealth management in general, you know, crypto becomes another way to diversify your portfolio so that you don't just have it in oil, property, or gold. So, you know, I'd say it's completely unsurprising. I'm sure to some degree there's a lot of truth in it. And why wouldn't they? And then also, I mean, if we talk about Georgia's mining a lot of Bitcoin because they have subsidized rates on energy consumption. So, you know, I'd almost be more surprised if they weren't doing something like this.
Were you following the story, Liina? Did you see that the CNN said it was just a rumor, a rogue economist? Do you have any feelings about your neighbor, your big neighbor there? Because you're obviously in Estonia.
Well, yeah, I was kind of following it, but it's, you know, these are rumors. We can't be certain. But, you know, with Russia, there's a lot of strange things going on. So, yeah, I kind of agree with Simon that I believe they definitely have some, but obviously it's not really a thing that they would officially admit to. Like I think CryptoCoin.news asked for a comment on that, and Russia said that it's not true. But you know, it would make sense that they would be doing this, but it's not really a good thing to admit to, as of course we had a lot of bad rep in Estonia as well, all this money laundering through Danske Bank. So yeah.
Well, and that's true as well. Not money laundering with the world's biggest bank. I always find these stories very interesting. People say, "Oh, Ponzi scheme or crypto, it's all very dodgy." I'm going, have you looked at your own banks? So yeah, so probably is a bit of a. Obviously, Russia's doing something. What? I'm not quite sure, and the rumors will continue. But the big news this week, of course, was the Ethereum Constantinople Fork, which just didn't happen. My goodness. So Simon, were you following that story?
Yeah, look, I mean, so I am following it, but I think there's almost two things where, like, on one hand, you could almost say this is a story for developers because, you know, they've explained why they're looking to do it and that, you know, they're going to potentially they're going to be less rewards for miners, but therefore it could bring more stability to the system. And it is interesting, but beyond a certain point, you realize that this is a story maybe for developers, by developers, whereas, because I guess all of us would naturally be thinking, what does this mean? What will be the impact on Ether? And to be honest, the people who are deciding whether to buy or sell Ether, often the traders, are going to probably dig less into this than other aspects. So I think it's interesting. I think the fact that it didn't happen, to me, that this is a bit of a good example where developers get very deep into the code, but actually the things that drive prices up and down are a wider range of factors, of which this is just one. I mean, obviously, we'd all like to know what specifically happened, but I think overall everyone knows that Ether and Ethereum are having a bit of an existential period anyway, because, you know, like when Stellar and EOS are talking about how they can scale faster, you know, Ether in many ways and Ethereum fixed things that Bitcoin didn't do, but they are in danger of being overtaken by other technologies that fix the things that they can't do as well. So I guess in a micro thing, it's interesting, but in a bigger picture, it's part of a whole existential period for them, you know?
Crisis. Liina, do you think that if they do fork, they're looking at a 6 week roadmap now, And of course, the fork was pulled at the last minute because of the bug that chain security found, whatever. But do you think there's a risk that if they fork, we might have a new currency coming out of it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's the same. How easy it is to get consensus, to get everyone to agree to this. Does it really matter? I mean, the previous hard fork, we got Ethereum Classic, that's still living. On that note, though, Ethereum Classic recently suffered, there was a 51% attack. So many people are concerned that if, miners are not too happy with it, and how secure is the network going to be if not that many miners online, could Ethereum also have possibilities of a 51% attack? And, the mining proof of stake consensus that they are planning to have in the end, of course it's better because energy efficiency, but what about all this mining industry? So it's,
And if it does have a hard fork where it produces a second currency, does that mean we all double our Ethereum then? We get like new currency in our wallets?
That it will be in case when some, if there isn't a consensus and some people decide to use the old chain. But, the hard fork essentially means that you can't sort of roll back to the previous version. You have to either keep using the new chain or have your separate one. So,
it's interesting. So the next 6 weeks we'll find out what's going to happen, unless they find something else, whatever. It could be, as Simon, it could be an ongoing developer feud type thing, so they get all excited in their own their silos.
This is to make it more scalable and better in the end, and they are planning a lot more updates. So it's kind of, people who are trading and who are mining look at it on one side, but Ethereum's whole point is they want to build this platform, and it needs to be updated for it to reach its full capacity.
Which makes sense. I mean, you're right, they are falling behind, or they're in danger of falling behind. So then we're looking to the news, Cryptopia in New Zealand, more hacks again. Is this going to keep on continuing? There's more and more exchanges, more and more hacks. I see the CEO Kraken was saying, don't leave your money on exchanges. Probably very good advice. But is that the way going forward, do you think, Simon? Do you just dump it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think most people who have any amount of cryptocurrencies of any value already have cold line storage, an offline wallet, something like a Trezor. And, this happened with my Ether wallet, last year. And therefore, I think you're taking a huge risk. Like, here's the thing, I guess, if you value the wealth and the money that you have, how much do you trust other people when in theory the whole point of cryptocurrencies is it's decentralized? And yes, if you lose it, you lose it. But on the other hand, you're the one who is able to safeguard its security if you have it in cold storage. So, to be honest, like, I think if you have, I don't know, more than 1,000 or more than 10,000 worth in tokens, I don't think you should be leaving it on an exchange anyway, really. So you're saying, will there be more hacks? I think there will always be, because it's impossible to have perfect security. It's every time you do something to make it more secure, equally there could be bugs, there could be ways around it. And at least cold storage and offline, you're down to if your house floods or if your house burns down, or but people have it in safes and things. So to be honest, I don't think you should be leaving most of your assets on an online exchange anyway. Buyer beware.
Yeah, you're right. Especially if you're an investor or an earner as opposed to a trader. If you're trading, obviously you're going to be online the whole time. But
you have to have some, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And actually, just the next thing too, Liina, is probably more relevant for you. Well, it's in the US, the Blockchain Regulation Certainty Act is looking at how to deal with tax. But in Estonia, how does the government deal with tax? I mean, like the last year, if you were holding tokens, you'd have a loss. You're making a loss, presumably, if you start of the year. So how does Estonia deal with tax when it comes to cryptocurrencies?
Well, you pay tax once you cash out your profits. So let's say if I bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, I'm still holding it. I will not be paying tax on it every year. I will pay the tax once I either sell it and have some profit, then I will pay income tax on that. If it's a loss, and obviously not. Now, if you're acting as a company, then the taxes are a bit easier. As a person, apparently you do have to register every single trade that you do, so that doesn't make any sense. But overall, the tax comes into play once you cash out.
Okay, what's it like? I'm grappling with my accountant this year. What's happening in Ireland and the UK, Simon? Do you have any insight into that?
So the current state, as I understand it, is that when you cash it in, then you trigger capital gains implications. So if it's based on trading, and then like Liina said, when you bring it into a fiat environment, then potentially you have capital gains on it. Now, obviously, you do have an interesting situation where what happens if you're normally selling it at a loss now relative to the price that it could have been 15 to 12 months ago. But as it stands, that's capital gains when you cash it in. Now, I guess at the moment, many people wouldn't be cashing in depending on when they bought it because they'd be making a loss on it. On the other hand, though, some people are looking to make losses to offset tax in other areas. So I guess then, it moves into a complex area. And on one hand, then you then say, ask an expert. But at the same time, you really want to make sure that your tax advisor is a crypto expert rather than just a tax advisor, because it is quite a new area. Although the Irish guidelines have aimed to say that this is just another asset like other things, so it doesn't need specific legislation on crypto. It's a capital gain. So it's like if you sold a horse or a house. This time it's if you're selling crypto, and if you're deemed to be making a profit on it, then I think it's 30% on what you've made. So it's certainly something to be aware of, because obviously you're then going to have to offset the amount to pay tax as well as the amount that you've rendered on your profit. So they're looking to have their bite, their share. I guess same as it ever was.
Yes, it's kind of confusing because if you're holding, but you're right. If it's an asset, like if you have a horse in the back garden, you're not selling it. He's just costing you money, actually, as it happens, if it is a horse. And I know from first-hand experiences, rescue horses cost lots of money. So then I suppose just the last point then, it's the new year, it's 2019, the markets seem to have leveled a bit. I'll start with you first, Liina. What do you think towards 2019 and the price of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin? Have you any feeling for where they might go? Is John McAfee in danger with his privates?
John McAfee is definitely in danger. But people are definitely more hopeful. But if you look at the markets, it still looks like a downtrend. Bitcoin this week is kind of going sideways, but it should bottom out soon. I mean, if we look at the previous bubbles of Bitcoin, it loses around over 80%. Then in about 3 years, it will reach new highs. So if this is the bottom now, then we have about 3 years to wait. Or who knows? It's a difficult topic to speculate on. But I see that people definitely on forums and traders are hopeful again. So we'll see.
You're positive. What do you think, Simon? Do you have a view on what's going to happen in 2019?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think things are still volatile. If you look at Bitcoin, Ether particularly, it could still be going up or down 5 to 10% a day. And I agree with Liina that there have been the 7 previous rises in Bitcoin in the value of it. But on the other hand, that's no reason to mean that it could or would do the same anytime soon. And I think because the last rise helped to spread awareness, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, it then burned a lot of people who jumped in towards the latter half of the end of 2017. So when it was already over 10,000, so therefore, while more people now know about it, more people got burned and are wary by it. So I think, long term, potentially there are the tokenomic reasons why the price could rise. At the same time, even with Bitcoin, there are still existential challenges. There's the discussion that potentially there's a tranche of Bitcoin set aside from the original period where it's being mined. And if that were to be brought to the market, that could flood the market and push the value of Bitcoin back down again. So therefore, you know, if we just believe that that it will go back to similar heights in 2019, there's no actual fact-based reason to say that it will do that. I guess while we're talking about this, my parallel thought is that, on the other hand, like with Ethereum, if it's the right platform, people will build on it and it will get usage. And therefore, that's not a sure thing. So therefore, we're still in format wars in terms of EOS or Stellar or Ethereum. And so I think some cryptocurrencies will do well once they get a network and a usage, but we still don't really know whether Ethereum's going to fix its problems. Does EOS really offer the solution, or is it overhyping itself? So like overall, I'm optimistic about what blockchain can do and the value of the technologies. But to look at which specific currency is going to come through, I think we're still in, you know, those Internet 1.0 period when it could be a bloodbath and no one really knows yet, because a lot of the development is still being done. Like these tokens are still super new, and therefore, you know, I think overall I'm optimistic, but specifically we could still see several tokens in the top 10 get maxed out when it's found that they have no utility, or the way that they're being held isn't right, and there's too few people holding it. And we're, you know, we're actually still super early stage, I think.
You're right. It is very true. I mean, Liina and I have been talking in the last few weeks. What's quite nice is that there's a lot of building happening, for sure, and that's nice to see real use cases coming down the track. And I think that will sort out the men from the boys, as they say. And you're right. Even the top 10 coins, the ones that are there, they're not immune to being chucked out if they turn out to be like the emperor's clothes. So interesting. Okay, so interesting times. Well, that was a very different Crypto Divas today. Thank you very much, Simon Cocking, for coming on board, our new guest. I think we'll do this again, Liina. What do you reckon? It's kind of fun. It's easy for me. I'm just asking the questions. I don't have any original thoughts myself today. That's happy days. So thank you very much, Simon, for coming on. It's a Sunday morning. It is the 20th of January. We're all looking good. And Liina, thank you for coming in all the way from Estonia. Obviously, Simon and I are on the island, the Green Island. And until next week, keep watching.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.